Morning left, so we might as well enjoy it while it's here. How's everyone doing today?
Good.
All right. Well, there's a time to be educated, be inspired, follow the direction. There's two things that happen at this conference. One is an opportunity for an educator to educate, and then those that are seeking education to be educated. So we have a very unique opportunity today, flying all the way in from Virginia, which I am extraordinarily honored to be able to introduce. Not only a great man and someone who I would love to mimic my life and my business model after, but a family member, blood. My second cousin, my father's first cousin, Amos Otis, who also is the owner of Sobering. Created in 1987 out of the basement of a home. Now 800 employees strong. Say that again. Basement to 800 employees strong. Now, whether he's dealing with bioscience, engineering, logistics, security, or safe mail, and supporting U.S. governmental contracts, this is a true inspiration to all of us in this room. Not only does this support the philosophy of, not only do we have our first African American president in the second term, we also have Brother Otis, that has just revolutionized his industry. Not only creating and being a part of science, but also helping protect those in our government and making our world safer. So with that, I won't take any more of the educator's time. So please help me introduce Amos Otis.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I would like to say it's a pleasure to be here, but it's a little too cold for me. Not what I asked for. I asked my cousin last year, I said, if you could give me some better weather, I'll be back. But I think you deceived me that the hot spring are coming through. But before I start, I would like to recognize someone myself, a lovely lady who persevered and who put up with us, her 3 sons and me. Their cousin, Aunt Isabella. She's here, 97 years old. She helped raise me and her 3 sons in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm very proud to say that I live with her.
Oh, that is you?
Okay, let's talk about what business is all about. And give you a little bit of my background. So, for those who are here who were saying that, well, I don't have the opportunity, my family doesn't have the resources, I grew up in the projects, from a broken home, that's not good enough. I went through all of that. My parents divorced when I was 6 years old. We lived from home to relative to relative. We lived in the projects. Fortunately, it was a very cohesive project and a very historical one because Ms. Rosa Parks lived there. She lived down the aisle from us, and she told us Black history, and I'm very proud to have been a part of that section of American history. Also, another interesting part of growing up there was the individual who has not been recognized in history, who's a very significant and very important person who actually started the civil rights movement in one sense. His name is E.D. Nixon, and he was a man who was uneducated.
Please turn off your cell phone.
Shame on you.
Learning equipment, I'm sorry.
That's
That's
funny. I was about to say it too.
I should have mentioned that to myself.
I should have mentioned that.
But this gentleman, E.D. Nixon, was a full reporter. And he learned and got involved in the civil rights movement, or the philosophy of civil rights, as he traveled through the North with A. Philip Randolph and those guys. He came back to Montgomery and started the Montgomery Improvement Association and the Montgomery Political Action Group. And as a part of that, Martin Luther King came to town as a young preacher, 23 years old, didn't know anyone, establishing the church at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. And this gentleman, E.D. Nixon, and the group he formed was the one who chose Martin Luther King to lead the civil rights movement there in Montgomery. Martin Luther King didn't step up and start the civil rights movement. He was chosen, though I take nothing away from him. Great man, and he stepped up and took the thing straight over the top. But he was not the person who thought up the movement. It was E.D. Nixon, an uneducated man from the country who came to town, very straight up man who, and as a kid, I was fascinated by the fact that he had his picture on all of the telegraph poles, running for office when we couldn't even vote.
Wow.
He was pushing the system, even then, running for office. Knew he couldn't win, but he was showing that this is what we had to do. His house was bombed. I mean, he was involved all the way. He fell out with the group later on in his life, and history tells the rest of the story. But I just wanted to mention that because he often is not stated in history anyway, but he's the person who did start it. Okay, enough of that. We're going to talk about business. And I sincerely want to thank the Pan-African Conference for the honor of being able to come in and talk with you. Now, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about how to build a business and how to maintain a business, which is very important. And it's something that any of you can do. It's not some gigantic, top secret, complicated, unique to any particular group. There's always been commerce all over the world. We've always been involved in it. And in fact, again, growing up in Montgomery, Alabama, the blacks had to be involved in commerce and businesses because you didn't have any other business to go to. So therefore, the grocery stores, the insurance company, the funeral home, the shoe shop, the bakery, the movie theater, all of that was owned by black people, and they ran those businesses, and they were very good business. So we can still do it. And in fact, again, my mother, single mother, who was a receptionist in what it was called a reweaving shop. The lady there saw that she had the intellect and the intelligence to do the work and asked her if she wanted to try to learn. She did learn it. And in fact, she became the best in the shop. And then she left the shop, moved into our house, and worked from her kitchen table to get all of the revenue from that. And then when we moved to Detroit, she took that business to Detroit and started working in her kitchen again. We were living on the 3rd floor of an apartment building. And one interesting point I may add to this is we had just moved to Alabama North, and we had been in this apartment building maybe a month. I went to school, my sister went to school, my mother went out to get some more work. We came back, the brothers had cleaned us completely out. Nothing there. So we had to sleep on the floor for about a year, trying to bake it, while my mother stayed in the kitchen, weaving and making a living for us, sending us to school. So I'm saying, anybody here, if you've got the determination and the belief in what you want to do, you can succeed. And that's the key. Now, personal introduction. I was born in Jackson, Mississippi, back in the day when that was not a nice place to be. And as soon as I was born, my parents moved back to Montgomery, Alabama, which was going from the frying pan into the fire, but we made it there. And in my high school years, we moved to Detroit, where I finished high school. My next point of departure was to Nashville, Tennessee, where I went to school at Tennessee State University. Great university. And in fact, I'm proud to say that I'm one of the trustees of the university and the treasurer and the chairman of the finance committee for Tennessee State. The next 21 years of my life was spent in the Air Force. I was an Air Force officer. And at this point, this is what gave me ideas into a larger picture of what corporate America was about. I was given an opportunity to work in a company in San Francisco under a program called Training with Industry, where you go in as a junior executive and you go all the way through the company, learning what they do. And the purpose of this was to teach you what the thinking was of the corporation when you, as an Air Force officer, are negotiating with them across the table. You understand their concerns, their problems, and you, in some way, sympathize with them to get a common agreement. From that, I got an MBA. Then I became a cost analyst on major weapon systems, and then a comptroller for the 8th Tactical Fighter Wing, and then a project manager for special programs at the Air Force Office of Scientific Research. I only say this to show you that there was a step, there was a progression in becoming a businessman and learning the parts of it. So I implore you, anytime you get an opportunity, to look at the elements of business, to sit and talk with an individual who's in business, ask them how they do it, what they're doing, and how they come to the conclusions and reach decisions within their business. Now, an entrepreneur that you hear a lot, being an entrepreneur, is just simply a word, meaning a person who takes a risk. It's not anything fancy. It doesn't make you great. It doesn't do anything for you if you don't step forward and work. But an entrepreneur takes on an enterprise and something that is challenging to give the public a product or a service that they desire or think they desire. A lot of things you buy, you didn't know that you wanted or needed, but you buy them. And that's what that entrepreneur's job is, to convince you that this is something you need. Also, he's the employer of labor and a contractor. Those are all the things that are wrapped up in an entrepreneur. Now, let's talk about how you start a business. Well, first, you got to come up with the idea, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. Got to come up with this idea. And that idea can come to you through going to formal business classes. It can come to you talking with a friend. It can come to you watching television. You see something that sparks an idea. It can come to you in church when the preacher gets into one of his real emotional sermons and the light goes on and you see this product you want to go out and produce and sell. Maybe a new Bible or an audible Bible. It may be a crucifix that have special decorations or designs. But all I'm saying is the idea is the first thing you come up with, whatever it is. Then you make that idea a goal. You take that idea, an idea is just a concept, and it doesn't move anywhere. A lot of ideas die at the kitchen table, but you have to take those ideas and put it down on paper and make it your goal. This is what I'm going to live for. This is what I'm going to accomplish. You can duplicate an existing service. You can put your own stamp on one. You can come up with something totally unique that the world has never seen before. But it is this idea and this goal that you bring up to nourish. Now, in my case, when I got out of the Air Force, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had been around all of these elements, and by fortune, and I don't know how this happened yet, I'm still trying to figure this out. My wife gave birth to our son the month I retired from the Air Force. So I kept saying, well, how did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Where did he come from?
Mm-hmm.
But I knew then I had to start doing something because I had another child to educate and to get up and running in life. So I thought about it and I thought about it, and then I remembered, I said, well, you've been involved in all these things in the military and the various elements of corporate America. What is it that you can do? What is it that others are doing? So I had a habit of going to, shall we say, church meetings at this place where people have drinks every now and then.
Friday night.
It's spilled over to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, other things too. But in doing so, I would hear others talking about what they were doing and the businesses they were in. And being in Washington, most of it was involved with the government and how they had gotten involved. But I later found out that a lot of the brothers were just blowing smoke. They weren't really in business. They were saying they were in business. But because of some of that, I said, well, you know, I've got all this background and this stuff. Let me try it. Let me see what I can do. And then I set out to open a government contracting business. They had no equipment. I had no real entry into this area other than having worked with it. In fact, a company asked me to start an office in Washington for them to market them and to try to get business. That failed. Again, I was out on the street. So I said, well, I'm going home. I went into my basement, set up my old computer, a ragged copier, and a telephone. And I started calling all the people that I had ever worked with to let them know that I was there and I was in business and I could do X for them. X meaning, what do you have that you need done? And some of the things I got were mostly consulting contracts to start off from friends, $10,000, $15,000, $30,000. But that doesn't take care of a family of 4. And fortunately, right after the birth of our son, my wife started working again. So that kind of padded our income on that side. However, the bank was calling every month about, you know, the late payment on the house. Well, I'm going to send it to you as soon as I can. But the thing is, from that point, I had to concentrate on what I had planned to do. The same thing applies to you. Once you decide to do it, you've got to concentrate, dedicate yourself to that particular aspect of business. Now, you've got to determine what the market is that you're going to put this idea in, and you got to build yourself a business plan. Something that tells you where you are and where you plan to go. You can get help doing this. In fact, in universities, they have these programs in the business school. The small business agency within the federal government has computer programs. You can go online and get this information, or you can go to them. They hold classes, and you can learn how to put together a business plan. Then your conviction about what you want to do. Now, I say this over and over because you got to believe that you're doing something that is important, if to no other person but to you. Because in many cases, and in my case, I was laughed at a lot of times. Friends that I had grown up with, had been in college with, when I told them what I was trying to do, they thought I was crazy. You can't do that. How are you going to compete with these guys? You don't have anything. Well, I believed that I could. Determination. And then, one of the most important things in business is discipline. You've got to discipline yourself to get up in the morning or stay up all night or whatever it takes to put your business together and make it run properly. I'll give you kind of an offline, off-course story. My company put on a conference at Tuskegee, Alabama, between the U.S. Energy Department and the South African Energy Department, right? And one morning, I got up, going to breakfast, I walked downstairs, and there was the Deputy Energy Minister of South Africa standing there. So I asked him to go have breakfast with me. He said, fine. No one else was there but the two of us, and we were sitting and talking. And it just, my curiosity overcame me. And I said, would you please tell me how 4 million people or less can control 24 million people? And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, discipline. Discipline. And You know, you may call that racist statement, whatever you want to call it, but it was a fact of life.
Mm-hmm.
And it applies, it can be applied good or bad. But it is a fact of life that discipline is a characteristic that will make you a success or failure.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't apply it properly and stay on top of your business by organizing yourself and making yourself get up and be dedicated to that business.
Mhm.
Now, I was in that basement for 5 years, and that was plenty of opportunity for me to get up and go party, to do whatever.
Mhm.
My wife would call and say, hey, can you start the food, or can you put the baby's clothes in the washer? No. I got these things I have to do. They must be done, right? Now, I didn't mean to be mean, I didn't sound mean, but I knew that these things had to be done. And you have to use your intuition and your ability to play the game. I would call up the government contractor, small business officer, contracting officers, and talk to them like I had this big office. And they would call me back and sometimes say, well, we're coming by, we'll come by and talk. I said, no, I'll be in your area, let's have lunch. But the image was that I had a full-fledged operating office. And that was what they were interested, to know that you were a stable, functioning office or company that could handle the business that they needed done. Now, you need patience also with discipline. The discipline is probably the most important. Now, how did I get these elements moving? One thing I want you to understand, and please write this down. You always want to hire people who are smarter than you. Don't be afraid of having people who know more than you working in your company. Your job is to control it, to manage them. But you want people who are smarter than you, who have capabilities, who have degrees, who have experience in areas that you have not had, but you want to go into those areas. There are people out there who have the ability to work and to build businesses, but they don't want to run them. They are not managers. They don't want to take the risk. Because you are taking a risk. You laying it all on the line when you put yourself in a business. Because you got to be willing to promote that business, and you got to be willing to support it. Support it how? Through your physical activity and through your finances and your resources. A business without finance or resources does not exist, or it won't exist for very long. Now, what does this mean? Everybody doesn't have a lot of money to put in a business to start one. I know that. Nor did I. But I used what I had. And in my case, fortunately, I had a mother who thought I was Bill Gates. So when I told her that I needed X amount, she went to my father's bank account and got it out. Not small amounts, but she did it. I paid her back, certainly, as soon as I could. But all I'm saying is you've got to have resources to finance what you're trying to do. Now, there was a company when I was getting started that would go and give you a paper saying that they would finance your contract if you won it, which the government accepted as being a valid statement that you had the resources to do whatever was needed to be done. The company who wrote you that letter wasn't losing anything, because if you didn't get the contract, they didn't give you the money, and if you got the contract, they could get the money. That was their business. They came up with that idea, but that worked for me, because they gave me the letter, and I took it to the government, and they established me as a company that they could rely on, because I had resources. Okay, we said a business plan is something you need to get started. Now, what I mean by a business plan is it's basically an outline that you write out for yourself. It's more formal than that, but you need to get with someone, either through the Small Business Administration, through your university, through a friend, through a consultant, and lay out your business plan. You can do it basically yourself, and then you take it to somebody to get it refined. Because the bank, if you go to borrow money from the bank, they're gonna demand that you have a business plan to show them that you know where you are and where you're going, and they can only rely on getting their money and their payments back from what they loan you to get there. You've got to have a solid business plan, and it'll work either for the bank or for a family member or a friend or associate who is looking to make some kind of interest on monies that they have. Again, as stated, you need to have a line of credit. And to do this, all of this, I suggest you get professional assistance to assist you in these things. Now you've got the idea, you dedicated yourself to it, you put it down on paper, you're working to get the finance that you need to back these things. Now you gotta have marketing materials. What does that
Excuse
mean?
me, were you in DC when you were doing this? I kind of lost track of where you were.
I was in DC and Dayton, Ohio.
Okay, all right.
Dayton, Ohio is where my corporate office is, and that's where I started per se. But all of the action is in Washington DC, so that's where I maintain my operations office. Okay, and my family lives in Washington also. Now the market materials, simply brochures, business cards, website, you know, anything you can do to get your name and your product out there. You want people to know that you are there and that you have something that they need or that can help them with a problem that they have. You also need to socialize. You can't just come up with this idea and sit in a corner somewhere and try to get it to move. You've got to get out and socialize with the public, whether it's your church, whether it's an organization you belong to, or just general socialization. And being able to open up to people. What you need to, one thing that is very good to do is try to get a statement for yourself that you develop that tells the person that you want to talk to everything about what you're doing in 5 minutes. So if you get on the elevator with somebody who says, I got money all over me and I'm ready for the product, you got to let them know in 5 minutes before that elevator opens up again what you got and what you can do for it and how good you are at it. That's what you want to do. In socializing, you also need to present, and let me say this, and I'm not knocking the present generation, because there was a time when I was the present generation, and we walked around with big afros and we had our pants pulled all up and we had, you know, we were the young group. But there are two worlds that work simultaneously. There's the business world and then there's the social world. And you've got to be able to transition between the two.
Code switch.
Yes, absolutely. Even now with my associates and my employees, and they're very mixed, when we are socializing, I have one drink, well now I don't drink anymore, it's been like 9 years since I've had a drink, but during that time, I would have a drink or two with them, I'm gone. I talk business, have a drink with them, I'm gone. That doesn't mean I stop having fun. I go on the other side of town to the brother joints and start hanging out and relaxing and doing what I felt I needed to do to get the stress and the pressure off. But when I was with my business group, it was strictly business. Strictly business. Okay. And you want to dress for success. You can have two different outfits. You can have one closet for socialization, one closet for business. But if you're going into the mainstream of society business, you've got to play their game on that side. You also got to be able to talk their language. You can't go over there talking all hip. That's good. That's good with the boys on the corner, but it doesn't work when you're trying to sell your product or promote a program that you have in the mainstream business world. You've got to be able to talk their language. Okay, what is needed? Good financial records. You got to maintain a good financial record, because it's easily to check on how you're conducting yourself and what your finances are. Anybody who is dealing with you can go on the internet and find out just what your status is. So make sure you keep a clean financial record. Even if you get behind, that's not uncommon. Make sure you take care of it though. Need a good legal advisor, someone who can keep you out of trouble. And you need to be able to go in and talk with them or call them up and ask them questions. And you need someone who can manage your contracts, or you take a course or get with someone who can teach you what is necessary in handling contracts. Because there are a lot of variables, there are a lot of things that you can get bitten by once you sign onto a contract to do something for someone. You need to know exactly what you're saying and what they're asking you and what you're expected to deliver. This isn't a game. It gets real tough out there, and people will come back and sue you and wipe you out if you're not careful in saying things that you can't do that you say you will do. So make sure you know what you're doing and what you're saying and signing when you start that. Your office can be anything. As I said earlier, it can be virtual, it can be at home, it can be shared, but you've got to establish an address for someplace where you are, people can get in touch with you. But now with the new phones and the new type of technology, you can be anywhere and be in your office, because it'll ring right in your pocket. You can, or you can have a answering service to answer and take your calls and give you the information. So that's not very difficult. But the important part is getting back to the people that call with the information they ask you for, always. Now, you've gone through all of that and you've got customers. Or you want to get customers, but you have to start calling on them and visiting them and letting them know again what you're doing and what you can do for them. How your services can make their lives better. That's what they're looking for. Go to trade shows. There are a lot of those around. Find out the ones that have bearing on you, what you are trying to sell. And again, I say find common social environments where you can get with people and talk with them about what they're doing in the same area you are in. You want to learn from them. And you want to exchange ideas as to what you're doing. You don't want to give away all your secrets, but you want to learn what they're doing and how they're doing it in comparison to what you're doing. How can I make mine better? How can I put on this new widget that would be better for them or for the next customer than it is now? You're always looking to make yourself better. And people do open up a lot when they get in relaxed environments such as bars. When they have a couple of drinks, they loosen up and they want to talk about their business.
That's why you don't drink a
That's
whole
right.
lot.
I don't drink anyway. None. But it wasn't so much from, I developed a health problem. I dropped it. But I enjoyed it. I didn't leave anything on the table. I'm not gonna lie about it. I spent 21 years in the military, and I don't think that there was a day that I didn't enjoy myself. Because during the war, you didn't know whether you were gonna be back tomorrow. You didn't know what you. So I worked.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay. All right. Now you get your first sale, and you sell your product, right? You finally got that, and you sold your product. What you want to do then is control the cost. You got to keep control of the finance. You got to control the cost of your product. Now, controlling the cost of the product means material, it means the labor, it means the interest of the money you borrowed to promote that, and it also means the expense of your office, if you have one. All of those things have to be factored into your product. Now, you can make your product cheaper, you can absorb some of the costs until the product takes off and you're able to recoup. But you gotta make your product comparable and competitive to the other products out there that are coming from your competition. And also, one very important thing is when you get paid, you make darn sure you pay everybody else. Pay all your bills and all your responsibilities. And you also want to put your money back in your business. That's very important. Just because you start to get money coming in doesn't mean it's just something, you know, I'm fat now. I can start partying and I can run around and buy all those things. I'm gonna get me some silver hubcaps and some gold muffler pipes and a knob on my steering wheel. No, you got to take that money and put it back into your business. You want to build inventory, so you're able to get products to your customer as soon as you sell it, or have access to an inventory. You want to get the best talent that you can possibly afford. People who know more than you and can help you improve your company and improve your product. You want to build a very positive reputation in name and product. Very important. And you want to get your name out there so when they see your name, they know what kind of product you're selling and how good your product is. Now there are government programs, and that's the world I exist in. And if you so desire, there is a program within the Small Business Administration called the 8A program. What is that? That's a program initially designed for minorities, to help minorities get started. Once you qualify for this program, which means you build a business, you show that you can conduct a business and that you're solid, you go and you fill out these applications and forms and everything, and it gives you, and once you get the certification, you put you in a category where you compete only with 8A companies. So you don't have to fight the big boys all the time. You competing with companies your size and of your background.
Is AA an acronym?
No, 8.
8A.
It's a section in the Small Business Code.
Okay,
Okay. 8A. You can look it up on the internet, small business. Also, there are special categories for women-owned businesses. And President Obama has come out, and his administration has come out with a new category or a new definition where they give special consideration to women-owned businesses. Now, I'm not really familiar with all of the qualifications of that because it's new. I don't even know if they've implemented it yet, but it's there. And so I would say look it up if you're a female. Or your male if you want to put your wife. You get your wife in business and have her running it, that's fine. There are programs for disabled veterans. There are programs for Native Americans. And depends how much Native American heritage you have as to whether you qualify for that. So that's something you have to look into. Now, there's some no-nos. Once you start making money, don't run out and buy that big car. Or think you can go buy that big house. That's one of the things that will take you down real fast. Because you then gotta live for that. You wanna live for your business. When the business gets to the point where it can buy that for you, then that's when you get it. I'm not saying don't reward yourself. You earned it, you worked for it, but make sure the business is getting it for you, not you getting it and working for the gift. A lot of us do that. And when the contracts start to dry out, or they get a bump in the road, they can't make the payments on all of this stuff, they can't make the payments in their business, they go under. And I would say, leave romance out of business. It's serious. You can't get all emotionally tied up with someone who's a customer or a potential competitor. Leave romance out of business. Leave bad attitudes out of business. If you got a bad attitude, stay home. Don't take it to your business or your customers. You always got to be positive when you present yourself to them. You don't want to cut corners in performance, in your contracts, in your work, or your word. You want to be a person or a company that is respected and they can rely on what you say. Your word is your bond. Make darn sure. And another thing, this is a personal thing for me, and I will share it with you. You leave politics, religion, and this may be a negative here, but civil rights out of your business. Okay. The business has no personality. It is delivering a service. You deliver service for a person, they pay you for that service, and you decide how much of that is a profit and then you go to the next thing. If you feel very strongly about social issues, that's nothing wrong with that. You can help those social issues once you get your business established and you got the resources and you got the position and the reputation to speak on it. Your business can give you that. But you don't want to promote your religion. Why? Because people have all diverse religions in the business world. Then you have to respect theirs. You don't want to get into arguing about politics. Politics changes every day. The person you argue with, it may be on your side, but tomorrow it may be on the other side. You know? And I tell all my people, we don't have politics in this country. We work for the person who's there in the government that has the position to give us a contract to perform a service for the government, no matter whether it's Republican, Democrat, Independent, or radical. We don't care. We deliver service. And that's what we do. Okay. In closing, and I see I've taken up a lot of your time already, and I'm open for questions. But make sure that you hire people, again, I say this, smarter than you. And that's how I accomplish a lot of the things that I've accomplished. Now, I've got a degree in business. My education is in education. Though I never taught formally, I have taught, but not formally. I'm not a scientist, not an engineer, although I was in engineering school, but they asked me to leave. They said, this is not for you. I have developed a company that has an engineering and logistics division, a bioscience division, and a security services division. Now, how did I do all that not having a background in those? I hired people who had the knowledge and the respect in those sectors and gave them the resources to go after the business that they knew and that they could do. And that's how we went from one man in the corner basement for 5 years to 900 people in 12 states and the nation of Cuba.
Did you start out as a consultant where you would actually,
Yeah.
you didn't have, okay.
That was what I did in the beginning.
Okay.
But I did it through people I had known and they knew me. Because I used to be a consultant for the National Science Foundation, for the National Academy of Sciences, for the Air Force labs and the Navy labs. So I had been to all those places.
Right.
I just went back and asked them if I could do some of the things I had done for them or had people do for them when I was in the military. And so they were kind enough to give me a contract to go back and represent them in different places.
Now, do you use the Federal Registry? Where if you're looking for contracts, how do you search for your contracts? Because in nonprofits, we tend to go to the Federal Register to find some things. But I noticed that we have in the business department, there's a couple of well, there's a professor there that helps actually one of the big name people in our state to locate contracts. And I'm wondering, because I'm interested in it myself.
Yes.
I have to figure out where they're getting these contracts.
Okay, well, let me try to help you with that. The source you mentioned first is a good source. And it lays out all of the things that the government is going to do in those areas. However, when you see it there have been people 6 months ago who were aware of it, and they've been quoting the people in that area or those who are associated with that area as to what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, how much money is in it. Here's what I can do for you. Look my name up when it comes to that kind of thing.
Okay.
So you're behind the competition. Doesn't mean you can't do it. You can put in a good proposal and it may be the one that they select. But you are behind the power curve.
Well, then where do you find the contracts?
You find the contracts through first, let's establish the area you're interested in. Once you find that, then you go to the internet, if nothing else, and find a government agency that has or requires that service. Then you go down and find the program managers under that who are in charge of that.
Gotcha.
And then you try to get a meeting with them. In a lot of cases, because they're getting a lot of calls, they're going to direct you to the small business office, who's the person who they sent down there that they want to get out of the office, that they're tired of dealing with that, doesn't really know much anyway. But they send you there, but they can direct you to others who can give you more information and let you know when these things are gonna go out on the street for bid. Yes, sir.
I kind of smiled when you said something about sociology, socializing with people.
Yes.
And of course, the ballroom, I know about that. I'll give you a small background on me. I was a recruiter for South Central Bell.
Okay.
And then an opening came up at SUNO, Southern University of New Orleans, to be a career counselor. So I went into that because I was recruited with South Central Bell.
Yes.
You know, as soon as I got there, a guy named Rod McDavis came to SUNO,
Okay.
and he wanted to recruit people to the University of Florida.
Okay.
He was there 4 hours. I had one person for him to talk to, so I meekly went into the office where I had the recruiter, and I said, "Hey man, I ain't got nobody, you know, to tell you the truth, I don't have a master's degree, so I don't know what the University of Florida does, blah, blah, blah." You know, I was a career recruiter. So he said, "Sit down." That man's name is Dr. Rod McDavis. He's the president of Ohio University.
Oh, wow.
When I met him, he was the recruiter for the University of
Yes,
Florida.
yes.
But he, you know, I sat down, I told him I didn't have anybody. He said, "Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you come to Florida and I'll, you know, drive from New Orleans to Florida to my program, and I'll show you what the University of Florida has
Yes.
for your students, you know."
Yes.
And I said, "Well, I can't. You know, Dr. McDavis, I don't have no money to drive to Florida." He said, "You got a car?" I said,
Yeah.
"Yeah." He said, "I'll pay you 25%. I said, "When you having that program?" 25 cents a mile? When you having that program?
Right.
You know, that is how I got here, you know, because
Yeah.
my frat brother Rod, my frat brother went, "Oh, let me help me out."
Dr. Fagan.
Dr. Fagan told me, "Hey man, you're down here, you're putting people in Iowa. I'm right next door." He didn't tell me that was another 6-hour drive. Yeah. But the socializing with my frat brother, that Omega, Rod McDavis, I'll get into, socializing taught this dumb corporate recruiter how to put people in grad school.
Right, right. And I'll give you a story that happened to me somewhat similar. And again, it doesn't matter what color, race, or
That's right.
nationality the person is. You approach them as a human being and relate to them as an adult.
Mhm.
You never know what's gonna happen. And while I was still in the military, there was the black officers used to get together every Thursday at the officers club, sit around and complain, laugh, joke, do whatever, just have a good time. Right? Get drunk. There was a lady there who was a German extract who had been dating one of the guys. But she was just there in the group and a very nice person, just part of the group. So when I got out, and years later when I was applying for my contracts, I had gotten in the 8A program, and the first contract of substance that I got was there at that base, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And they said, "Come over." The small business office called me, said, "Come over, we got a contract for you. You need to fill out a proposal, give it to us, and then we'll go through it and hire you." I went over, got the proposal, went back, thought I knew what I was doing. Certainly did. Took it back, they turned me down. But as soon as I got back to my desk, I was discouraged, I was depressed, sitting there, phone rang. It was this lady. She worked in the contracts office. She said, "You got a contract?" I said, "No, Rosemary, I don't. I don't have one." I said, "I tried. I didn't know what I was doing. I messed up and took it back." She said, "Here's what you do. You come by my house tonight. I'll help you write it."
Wow. Well, I wondered, you had said something about making sure yourself is prepared, that little 5-minute spiel.
Oh, yes.
When I was at Hampton undergrad, I was a marketing major.
Okay.
And we had a person who was on loan from us, from IBM, who taught me sales.
Yes.
And he was very simplistic in his delivery. And he said, if anything that you do, be kind to the janitors and the secretaries, because they get you in the door and out the door.
Yes.
And what I mean by out the door, they can make it very hard for you to get in the door and make it difficult for you to even get anything done. So that was one thing I learned from him. And the second thing that he taught us, be prepared at the drop of a hat. And I'm always telling my students, come to the Pan-African conference, go to this conference, that conference, because you need to socialize within your discipline. Meet people who can help you. That's why I'm here all the time.
Yes.
It's for my own benefit as well.
Yes.
So he told us the same thing that you said. I'm at the Urban League, and I'm doing my thing just like here, and I happen to go into the bathroom, and Secretary of Department of Labor, Lexus Herman, was in there. And immediately, because I'm in this kind of environment, I know Clinton had appointed her to be the Secretary of Department of Labor. And I was like, oh my God, this is my moment. So I gave her that 5-minute spiel, got my program, my correctional program, done, more money put into our program, 11 more months or whatever we had to do. It was unbelievable. Out of that though, also I got a mentor, someone I had met there, who was also, at the time, he was retired from the Urban League, but he was the vice president of the National Urban League for 30 years under Vernon Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And he became my mentor from then on out. We ended up doing a grant together and got a $5 million grant out of that. And all of that came from that little spiel, just like what you said. I gave him a 5-minute spiel, so he said, baby, now what you do again?
Yeah, you got to open up.
Yeah, you got to talk.
Yes, be able to sell yourself. Yes. So, yes.
I like what you said about your money is not business money. I know a lot of people when they start a business, they
So
think,
business isn't your money.
yeah, that's what a business isn't your money. A lot of people start a business and they think that if the business has $100,000 in profit, I have $100,000. They need to know that you have to pay yourself as you pay your employee.
Yes.
And keep it up.
It's the last employee that gets paid.
I don't know about that one. But
You don't, the other
I
employees
agree.
don't walk, and you don't have a business.
True.
You know?
So if the business closed down, that's not you that don't have any money, that's the business that don't.
No. If the business closed down, it's you. You don't have any money. That's it.
Well, you don't have no money too, but what I'm saying is that by you paying yourself, it will help out separating the business from yourself, which you should do.
I think we're saying the same thing, kind of. Your business is you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to keep, the business is also looked upon as a child that you're developing. And you have to keep putting resources into that child to develop it into a mature individual. And if you're taking half of that and giving it to yourself, then you won't get this child to develop. I said in my personal experience, I didn't have a vacation for 12 years. My wife, when our daughter was at Hampton University, she didn't buy anything for herself for 4 years. Nothing. Because we put all of the resources back in the company. Back in the company.
And I think those that don't or haven't done your research or don't know exactly about soil bearing, I have a two-part question. One, can you share with us on the biochemical side, I don't know if you can even talk about that part, but I mean, isn't that protective almost to the military grade of protection of things coming to like the offices of the U.S. government and stuff like that?
Is
that a portion of it?
That is the security services side.
Okay, security
Where
services.
we were in 1902 when the anthrax attacks occurred. We were at Aberdeen Proving Ground, which is a research base for the Army where they develop chemical, biological, nuclear, all kinds of weaponry. But we didn't, in the United States, didn't have any defense against chemical or biological weapons. And they asked us to develop a process and procedure and build a facility to sanitize the government's mail from chemical, biological, nuclear explosives, that kind of thing. And that's what we've been doing since 1902, but 2002. We couldn't talk about it because it was highly classified.
Right.
But lately, we've been able to, been given release where we could talk about it, and we have built 3 facilities of our own to do commercial mail for businesses and government. There's one in Piscataway, New Jersey, where we do the mail and the packages for the banks and brokerage houses of New York, the National Hockey Association, National Hockey, and NBC. Some of them are not sending their mail per se, but they hire us as a agent in case they get something, then we act on that, so they pay us a monthly thing.
So black folks have made it to hockey.
In a sense. And we also put a facility up in Washington DC, just opened it recently, where we're doing a government, well, we do it for Lockheed Martin, big international company, and another company, and one other. One in Birmingham, Alabama, where we do the mail for the Internal Revenue Services, because there are a lot of people who hate
Oh, yeah.
the Internal Revenue Service. They send a lot of ugly things to them.
Wow. Okay, that's incredible.
We had a question in the
Well, the young man has hand up back here.
So, you mentioned something about your company dealing with having a branch regarding bioscience
Yeah.
and toxicology. And that's what I just saw on the website of the company.
Okay, bioscience is the largest division in the company. It's over 600 people.
Okay.
We're the largest research support contractor at the National Institutes of Health. Now, how we got into that, we first won a contract in Cincinnati to study the migration of pollutants in the rivers and streams in the southeastern part of the United States. As a part of that, we teamed with another company to bid on a contract at the NIH. We won that, the team won it. And then later on, my company felt that we were in a position that's strong enough to bid against the company that we had gone up there with. And we did that and we won. And so we've been gaining contracts ever since. But there was an individual who I hired for the job in Cincinnati who was able and had the credentials to represent us when we went to the National Institutes of Health. And we've been working there, and just for your information, when the Ebola threat happened, they asked us to come in and be the agent to take the waste out of the news that was associated with Ebola threat. Because we have been doing that in other areas of very highly infectious diseases all the time. So it's something that we were comfortable in doing.
So, in partnership with other companies, for example, environmental companies too?
We team with other companies whenever the opportunity arises. I mean, if it gives us an advantage,
Yeah.
we team with them. So if it strengthens us, we team with them. It doesn't matter. You know, half of an apple is better than no apple.
Yeah.
Young man, did you have a question? Anything is fair. Don't worry
Okay,
about it.
I was gonna ask, are you guys partnered with Lockheed Martin or?
We have partnered with Lockheed Martin on some things,
Okay, so,
and they have been subcontractors to us on other things.
okay.
That's strong.
So your company is cleaning this mail, and while you're cleaning this mail, I know you have to have a lot of hazardous material classes and stuff. Do the upper level people have those same knowledge of what the lower level people know about the hazardous materials and are all certified too, just like the lower people?
I don't wanna know. They are specialists in that area. They're given the task and the responsibility to do it, and they have all the equipment, all the safety procedures, and they do it. I know what's going on, but I don't go out there and stand around and watch them do it.
From the specialist. So the specialist say we need this and that, you can be like, okay, and give it to them.
Well, we give it to them before they said they need it. Everything is there for them. The machinery, the technology, the backup, I mean, we do it for the federal government, okay? And then we do it for private industry. But some of the facilities are very, very complicated. And it depends at what level of governance or business you're checking the mail for. Let's say the Secretary of Education doesn't get the same kind of threats that the Secretary of Defense gets. So the level of security would be different for each one.
Okay.
I know that our younger generation and our students and those that have came here to be inspired,
one thing that we didn't really jump over, and we didn't really realize is that in '87 when he started this company in basement, that first 5 years, and not being able to take a vacation for 12 years, I think the last time I looked publicly, it's like, what, about $62 million company? Something like that?
65.
I'm sorry, give or take, but $65 million company, and when you come to the Pan-African Conference, this is what we're talking about. This is where we say the world has an unlimited opportunity. So whoever's sitting in these chairs there, y'all are blessed. Because now you know that if you could start something in a basement and make it to $65 million, what obstacle could you possibly have in your life? Just wanted to point that out.
And you guys have a heck of a more.
Is it the speaker you had it on?
Yeah.
What I think we also should stress, because I have, as a professor, I have a very, very difficult time trying to get my African American students to this kind of environment. And I keep saying, get to the Pan-African Conference, get to the ACJS conference, they having so-and-so going on and wherever, and then it's like pulling a wisdom tooth. And I think that sometimes part of our cultural community, we are not constantly exposing to our young people the necessity of that kind of engagement. And if you don't know how to, one thing I can appreciate about going to Hampton, they used to have every so often, once a week or every other week, I remember making us dress up in a suit and socializing among IBM, Xerox, Pepsi Cola, and we would have our resumes ready, and they would prepare us to ask questions. What are your 2 questions? You have got to get comfortable in having a conversation with someone who is more educated than you, someone who is more or talented than you. You have to place yourself in an environment. Different from you. Different from you, right. You can't just sit in your space that you're comfortable with and you say, I'm from the hood, I'm from the project. That's okay. But you got to be able to step outside that space and have that conversation with different people. You got to learn how to do it. And you know what? I would tell my students, it's normal for it to feel uncomfortable at first. It's like driving a car. You feel uneasy about driving a car. It's normal, but it becomes easier as you do it. And that's my whole point.
Yeah. If I could beg your pardon to talk about my son. My son is an executive with, I always have to have the Exterior, which is a company that builds gas pipelines, natural gas pipelines. He's in Dubai. His name is Joe Marion. My name is Joe Marion. I inadvertently opened his W-2. I swear to God.
You didn't know your son made all that money.
I knew it wasn't mine because I said, is this $500,000? And that's what it was. You know, he's an MBA from Florida A&M.
From an HBCU.
So I mean, the amounts of money are unlimited. It's about getting in the right sector and working hard to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And I do thank everyone for coming and listening to me. And if I can be of any help, please give me a call or whatever. I'll be more than happy to talk with you. All right, but I want to say this, and just promoting one other thing. You said you're a Kappa, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So am I. But the 2 first black billionaires were both Kappas.
What? Wow.
Robert Johnson of BET.
Yeah.
And Reggie
from Baltimore.
Reggie
Lewis.
Reggie Lewis. Both Kappas. It's in the flag.
Where's the alpha man when I need him?
All right, everyone, let's give Mr. Otis a round of applause. Next session starts at 1 o'clock. It's lunch. Well, you can definitely go ask him.
Oh, there he is.
Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Talking about you, brother.